And so now I come to the 4 Ariyan truths. The first one is first Ariyan truth is about dukkha. That all existence is dukkha. This word dukkha literally means difficult to endure. And it's often translated as unsatisfactory or suffering or sorrow. And it encompasses all these meanings and probably more. Now, life or existence means the presence of life force or energy in us. And energy, implies motion, change, restlessness. Energy never stays still, right? And because of motion and change, there is impermanence. Because of impermanence, all beings are subject to the continued process of birth, aging. Babies come out of the womb crying. If they don't cry, somebody gives them a smack on the backside to make them cry. Born is dukkha. Aging is dukkha. Sickening is dukkha. And dying is the biggest dukkha for most people. And there's no being with eternal life. Because in the Buddha's teaching, all that arises is subject to dissolution. Anything that arises due to conditions must dissolve due to conditions. So the other aspects of dukkha is like being parted from loved ones is dukkha, as you all know very well. Meeting with enemies, people you don't like, is also dukkha. To lament over the past, what is already past and what wrong action that you did, you lament over it, that is dukkha. And to worry about the future, that also is dukkha. Not to have what one wants is dukkha. It's very common. And to get what one does not want is also dukkha. And not to have enough of what one wants is also dukkha. To have what one wants but not long time enough is also dukkha. Like many years ago, I saw in the papers, an old man about 80 years old, I think in America, he struck the lottery or lotto, millions of dollars. 80 years old, how to enjoy? That's also dukkha. To crave for sensual pleasures that cannot be satisfied, that is dukkha. To be restless and generally discontented is dukkha. To be subject to our constantly changing moods is dukkha. Now there are 2 kinds of feelings. Physical and mental feelings. Physical feelings are defined in the suttas as those feelings that arise from a physical contact. From seeing, from hearing, smelling, taste, touch, from the body. That is physical feeling. Mental feelings are those feelings that arise from a mental contact, from thinking. So there are also 2 kinds of dukkha. This is the 2 kinds of feeling. Physical dukkha and mental dukkha. Now mental dukkha, according to the Buddha, is not found in an Arya. In an ordinary person, the Pali word is putujana. An ordinary person has 2 kinds of dukkha. Physical dukkha as well as mental dukkha. He is stabbed by 2 spears or 2 knives. Whereas the Ariyan, the Arya, is only stabbed by 1, the physical dukkha. So, when we understand the Dhamma, then we accept things as they come. We understand that all things must change. That dukkha is part of life. So when we understand that, we don't have the mental dukkha. Now, the physical dukkha, again, can be spoken of as two types. One that is avoidable and one that is not avoidable. The one that is not avoidable is like aging. Nobody can avoid aging, sickening, dying. That's the type of physical dukkha that even an Arahant or a Buddha has to suffer. But the avoidable physical dukkha is that due to unskillful karma. Unskillful karma which harms others or harms oneself. So when we understand the law of karma, then we avoid unskillful karma. We don't cause harm to other beings and we don't cause harm to ourselves. So that is the aim of the Buddha's teaching, to minimize our suffering. To minimize our suffering. The Buddha's teaching is for us to understand what is skillful, what is not skillful. And from understanding what is skillful or wholesome and what is unskillful or unwholesome, in other words, good and bad, then we steer our path in life so that we walk the skillful way, the good way, and in the process of walking the good way, the good path, the skillful path, we avoid those unskillful actions that lead to unnecessary suffering, so that we have a minimum amount of suffering. And as we become more knowledgeable of the Dhamma, then we will come to realize if we want to end all dukkha, then we have to end this round of rebirths. Because existence is suffering. So as long as you are in this physical world, then there must be suffering. So the only way out of dukkha, in other words, even that minimum dukkha, if you want to eliminate entirely, totally, then you have to eliminate existence, which means you have to eliminate rebirth. Now we come to the second Ariyan truth. The second Ariyan truth is the cause of suffering. And the cause of suffering basically is because there is existence. As long as you have existence, there is suffering. Now the cause of existence is birth or rebirth. Okay? Now what is the cause of rebirth? The cause of rebirth is craving. That's the normal translation for the Pali word tanha. Okay? So in the Buddha's teachings, the cause of suffering is normally given as craving, tanha. Now this word tanha literally means a thirst, kind of thirst, a kind of like unquenchable thirst. So that is the meaning of craving. Now, there are three types of craving. Craving for sensual desire, craving for existence, and craving for non-existence. Now, craving for sensual desire, just now I've already spoken at a certain length on this. The restless nature of living beings makes them discontented, and they crave to satisfy their desires through the senses, because that's all they know. For a normal person, this discontentment you want to satisfy, just like the leper that itch he wants to satisfy. And the only way to satisfy this discontentment is to distract ourselves through the senses, and we try to satisfy our desires through the senses, things like sex, food, shows, music, luxurious living, etc. Now, of all these sensual desires, the desire for sex is probably the highest, strongest. And because this desire, sensual desire, living beings, that means normal, ordinary living beings, die unsatisfied, discontented, with the flames of desire unquenched. So because of that, rebirth occurs again. That is the craving that causes, the sensual desire craving that causes a rebirth. The second one is existence, the craving for existence. Now, of all these three types of craving, probably the craving for existence is the strongest. And this craving for existence is actually the will to live. The will to live. This will to live is nature's way for every species to preserve itself. That is why in every living being there is a sense of an I, a self. And because of this I, this self, we naturally tend to protect the self and we become selfish. And we wish to perpetuate this self. So because of that, when a person is dying, the will to live is so strong that it generates it's like a flame. The flame is about to die off. But because of the will to live, it bursts into flames again. It's just like the fire, you are burning some wood and leaves and all that. Sometimes it's almost like the fire is almost dead. And you see only smoke. And after a while, suddenly, the thing bursts into flames again because there's still something unburned there. So, this will to live is the hardest to overcome because it is the strongest of all cravings. And that is why the attainment of Arahanthood, the ending of the round of rebirths, Arahant is one who has broken the wheel of existence, the wheel of the round of rebirths, because Arahant comes from two words. Arahant actually comes from the word Arahatta, Ara and Hatta. These two words, Ara and Hatta. Ara means the spokes of the wheel, Hatta means it's destroyed, broken up. So Arahatta or Arahant is one who has broken the wheel of the cycle of rebirth. So the attainment of Arahanthood is the greatest attainment, the greatest act anyone can carry out. It is also the noblest. Why is it the noblest? Because that is the most difficult thing to do, to give up the self. And also the Arahant is the most compassionate being. Nowadays people don't understand. They say the Arahant is a selfish being. That's the most ridiculous statement, because the Arahant is one who has given up the self. And when a person has given up the self, he has no self. It also means he sees that all living beings are himself. He is one with every living being. So if every living being is he himself, how can he harm another living being? Right? That is why the Arahant is the most compassionate person in the world. You cannot find another person more compassionate than an Arahant. In the Buddha's teaching, a Bodhisattva is still selfish because he still has the self. He still hasn't attained to that higher stage of Arahanthood. Bodhisattva still has not completed the full evolution. spiritual evolution. He's still somewhere halfway. So because he has the self, he's still selfish. Whereas the Arahant has no self, and he's the most compassionate being. Now the third type of craving is the craving for non-existence. This craving for non-existence that causes rebirth is a bit interesting. Now, why does craving for non-existence bring about rebirth? This person who craves for non-existence, he doesn't want to exist, and yet that is the cause for existence. The first type is like a person who is so sick with life, who he cannot stand the dukkha in life, that he commits suicide. Just as nowadays you read in the papers, a large stockbroking company in Japan closed down, and one of the directors, clutching all his share certificates, used to be worth millions of dollars, now worthless. Holding all his share certificates, he jumped from a tall building to his death. So this kind of person, he can't take life anymore. So he wants to end existence. But because he's not ready to end existence, his mind is so agitated that is the very cause for existence. People don't understand that Nibbana literally means the Pali word Nibbana, cool. It means cool. You see, the English term, I always tell you, be cool, play it cool, right? Don't get agitated. That's what it means. Don't get agitated. Because when you are agitated, you can't be cool. So you cannot enter Nibbana if you're not cool, if you're agitated. And this person who's craving for non-existence, he's agitated when he commits suicide. He's so agitated that he cannot enter Nibbana. Impossible to enter Nibbana, because Nibbana is a cool state. So that is why you can see why when a person commits suicide, that itself is a cause for rebirth. Now the other aspect of the craving for non-existence is excessive desire in practicing the spiritual path. Practicing the spiritual path. There are some people, they meditate, they want to end the dukkha, they want to end rebirth, but they are very agitated, they practice too hard, and the desire to end suffering and to attain Nibbana is too great. Such a person with too much desire also can never succeed, because he is not playing it cool. There's one sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 5.89, where it is said that one cause for a monk failing in the holy life is that he does not reflect on the mind as freed. It's strange, that the mind is basically already freed. We don't understand it. And we keep on trying to get out of samsara. Actually, if we understand the teachings of the Buddha, then we come to realize that this world is our creation, because the Buddha said the world arises dependent on consciousness. So because we are agitated, we see the world arise in our mind, and in this world you see your body inside the world. And if you don't understand this, you strive very hard to liberate yourself. But basically, if we don't use this mind, then the mind straight away becomes cool. As long as we keep on using this mind and trying to strive, that is a mistake. That's why the Buddha said he does not reflect on the mind as freed. So it is suttas like this which are very important for us to understand. That is why it is very, very important to listen to the suttas. you don't listen to the suttas, you keep on practicing very hard. The more you practice, the more you keep yourself in samsara. Why? Because you have excessive desire, and that is not playing it cool. So these are the three types of craving that causes to stay in samsara, that causes to take rebirth. Craving for sensual desires that cannot be satisfied. The second one is craving for existence, the strongest craving, which immediately, as you die, brings about rebirth. The third one is craving for non-existence, this agitated state of mind, which also brings about rebirth. Now we come to the third Ariyan truth. The Buddha said that there is a state of cessation of dukkha. So the third Ariyan truth is the cessation of dukkha. And this state of cessation of dukkha is called nibbana. And nibbana is a state of no craving. Is a state of the destruction of the asavas. Asavas can be translated as uncontrolled mental outflows or defilements. And nibbana has the three characteristics of being birthless, decayless, and deathless, which is the opposite of ordinary things in existence. All things in existence have the three characteristics of being born, changing of state, that means decaying, and finally death or dissolution. Whereas nibbana is the opposite, birthless, decayless, deathless. Now, in one of the suttas, the Buddha said that we continue in samsara because of three things: greed, hatred, and delusion. And the Buddha gave a parable of a fire burning. And this fire is burning because of three things inside there: dried grass, dried leaves, and twigs. And as long as you keep on adding dried grass, dried leaves, and twigs, this fire will continue to burn, right? But suppose you don't put any more of these grass and leaves and twigs. What happens? Slowly the fire will burn up the grass, leaves and twigs that are already there until they are all consumed, and then the fire will go out by itself. So in the same way, the Buddha said, when we stop adding this greed, hatred and delusion, then there's no more fuel for the fire to burn that drives us in the round of rebirths. So that is why the nibbana is also a state where there is no more greed, hatred and delusion. Now in the Udana 8.3 and also in the Iti Vuttaka 2.43, there's one sutta where the Buddha said, there exists amongst that which is unborn, that which is unbecome, that which is uncreated, that which is unconditioned. If there did not exist amongst that which is unborn, that which is unbecome, that which is uncreated, that which is unconditioned, there could not be shown the escape from that which is born, from that which is become, from that which is created, from that which is conditioned. But because there exists amongst that which is unborn, that which is unbecome, that which is uncreated, that which is unconditioned, therefore the escape can be shown from that which is born, that which is unbecome, that which is become, that which is created, that which is conditioned. So the Buddha is saying here that the state of nibbana exists. Now, the state of nibbana cannot be known by the mind, because it is a state where the mind ceases, where consciousness ceases. That is why Nibbana can be described only in negative terms, like the unborn, the unconditioned, the unbecome, the uncreated, etc. In the Majjhima Nikaya, number 72, Agi Vacca Gota Sutta, the Buddha said, the Tathagata is liberated from reckoning in terms of body, feelings, perception, volition, consciousness, vacca. He is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the ocean. The term reappears does not apply. The term does not reappear does not apply. The term reappears and does not reappear does not apply. The term neither reappears nor does not reappear does not apply. So in this sutta, the Buddha is saying that the state of the Buddha, the final state, he is liberated from the five khandhas, body, feelings, perception, volition, consciousness. These five khandhas are also basically body and mind, because feelings, perception, volition and consciousness is mind. So the Buddha is saying he is liberated. That means the final state of the Buddha is liberated. There is no body, there is no mind. But the Buddha didn't say that there's nothing, The Buddha said he is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the ocean. Now there are two views about Nibbana. In Nibbana, the state of Nibbana, something exists is one view. And the other view is that nothing exists because there is no consciousness, there is no body, there is nothing. Now this the Buddha calls the two extreme views. That something exists is called the eternalist view. That means the Buddha, after going into Nibbana, he still exists in some way. That is called the eternalist view. The other one, that nothing exists because he has no body, he has no mind, is called the annihilationist view. That means he is annihilated, no more, destroyed. Now in one sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 4.174, the Venerable Sariputta said concerning this state of Nibbana, Sariputta, the Venerable Sariputta said, say not that something exists, because by saying that something exists, you bring in a difficulty where there is none. And he also say not that nothing exists, because if you say that nothing exists, you also bring in a difficulty. So, because this state is beyond the mind, we cannot speculate on it and say that something exists or that nothing exists. It can only be experienced by an arahant. But in the Aganya Sutta, in the Digha Nikaya numbers 27, the Buddha said, this designates the Tathagata, Dhammakaya, Brahmakaya, Dhammavuddho, Brahmabuddha. Dhammakaya means the Dhamma body. Brahmakaya means the Brahma body. Dhammavuddho means Dhamma become. Brahmabuddha means Brahma become. So the Buddha is saying that after he passes into Nibbana, this is the Buddha, the Dhamma body, the Brahma body. Dhamma become, Brahma become. Yet the Buddha is saying that the state is too profound for an ordinary mind to understand. Now, sometimes some people think that the Buddha's teaching is very different from the Hindus. To me, it's not too different, even though some people say you want to get out of samsara. And you strive and you strive and you strive. You never get out of samsara until you can cool yourself, because the state of Nibbana, the state away from dukkha, is called Nibbana, and it literally means a cool state. Cool state. You cannot be agitated. If you are agitated, you can never attain Nibbana. There is a sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya where a few causes for a monk falling away or failing is given. And one of it is quite interesting. One of the causes is that the monk does not reflect on the mind as free. The mind is basically freed. There's no need to look for liberation. The more we look for liberation, the more we tie ourselves up if we don't know how to go about it. That is why it is important to listen to the Dhamma. When we listen to the Dhamma, then we understand the teachings of the Buddha is extremely important. The Buddha's disciples are called sabbakas, hearers. And before they do anything, struggling to meditate and all that, they hear the Dhamma first, listen to the teachings of the Buddha, understand before you start to walk the path. So, in the Buddha's discourses, the path out of samsara is a very gradual path. You cannot think you want to go for a 2 weeks retreat and try to attain in a short time. That is only possible if you have undergone a long struggle before you. For example, the simile of a durian dropping. It's true that durian dropped suddenly, but it took a long time to grow from a small fruit, grow in size. It takes a definite time for it to grow in size until it is fully grown. And after that, they need some more time to ripen. And then only when it's fully ripened, then it falls. So in the same way, the holy path, all the basic groundwork must be done. It's a very gradual path. And finally, the fruit falls. There is an interesting sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya where the Buddha talked about the parable of the carpenter's adze handle. You know, the adze is an instrument for planing the wood. And when I was young, they had these adzes where you use 2 hands to hold the adze and you do the planing. But probably during the Buddha's time, they don't use 2 hands, they just use 1 hand on the adze wooden frame, and then they do the planing. And then the Buddha said, this carpenter, he uses his adze, and after a long time, he looks at the adze, the wood has got the mark of the thumb, has got the mark of the fingers, how do you say, etched into it, sort of worn into it, into that wood. So he knows by seeing the adze, the wood, by seeing the marks of his fingers there, he knows that he has worn away the wood by using the adze. But the Buddha says he does not know how much of the wood he wore away yesterday. He does not know how much of the wood he wore away today. He does not know how much the wood he wore away at other times. But he knows that the wood has been worn away just by plainly seeing that it has been worn away. So in the same way, when we cultivate the spiritual path, we do not know how much of the asavas or defilements has been worn away. For sure. But if we continue practicing year, after some time, we find our whole person change. Our personality changes, the temper goes down, the ego goes down, we become more humble. We let go of some of our attachments. We become a cooler person. Then we know for sure we're on the right path. That some of the asavas has been worn away. So it's not that you go for a short retreat and immediately expect results. It takes years and years of practice on the holy life.